Nobody warned them about mercy. That was the thing the galactic sovereignty never understood about humans. They studied our weapons. They mapped our warships. They calculated our troop numbers and supply chains and orbital defense grids. They filled entire data archives with information about what we could do. But they never stopped to ask what makes us do it. That was their mistake, and it cost them everything. My name is Sergeant Dara Osai, 3rd Expeditionary, attached to the Civilian Protection Detail on Verath Station, a waypoint hub sitting at the edge of the Caldrus Belt, about 11 light-years from the nearest human colony. Not glamorous, not famous, just a tired, rust-colored station full of traders, mechanics, refugees, and the occasional diplomat who took a wrong turn somewhere. I'd been posted there 14 months when the sovereignty ships arrived. 3 cruisers, no advance hail, no docking request, just the proximity alarm screaming at 400 and then Commander Yusuf's voice over the intercom, flat, controlled, the way he only got when things were genuinely bad. All security personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. I was pulling on my boots before the sentence finished. The station was shaped like an old-fashioned wheel, inner ring for cargo, outer ring for habitation, central hub for docking and command. By the time I reached my post at Junction 7, the outer corridors were already filling with civilians. Thousands of them. Families from at least 30 different species. Traders who'd been sleeping off long hauls. Children, human children, Vethani children. A pair of young Dvoraki who couldn't have been more than 4 cycles old, clinging to each other with all 6 arms. Private Tamaz Reyes was already there when I arrived, 22 years old from Guadalajara, 6 months out of basic. He had that look on his face, the one that said he was scared and trying very hard not to show it. "What are they doing?" he asked. I looked at the feed on my wrist display. The 3 sovereignty cruisers were holding position just outside docking range. Big ships. The kind built for enforcement, not exploration. The kind that came to make a point. "Don't know yet," I said, "but stay close to the civilians." That was the job. Whatever happened, that was always the job. The galactic sovereignty had been pressing into the Caldrus Belt for about 8 months by then. Their position was simple, delivered through diplomatic channels with the kind of polished arrogance that only comes from winning wars for 1,000 years. The belt belongs to us, always has. Your presence is provisional. Your cooperation is expected. Humanity's position was equally simple: no. Not aggressive, not inflammatory, just no. We weren't leaving. We'd built the stations. We'd negotiated with every species in the region. We had treaties, relationships, supply routes, people who'd planted roots in the dark between stars. And we do not leave people behind. That's not doctrine. That's not policy. It's something older than both of those words. The sovereignty didn't believe us. That was fine. They'd figure it out. The first transmission came at 4:23. Not to command, directly to the station's public address system. Broadcast to every corridor, every sleeping bay, every cargo hold. A voice, translated into 12 languages simultaneously, cold and flat and absolutely certain of itself. "Attention, Verath Station. You are operating within contested sovereignty space. All non-registered personnel are ordered to present themselves for processing. Human security forces will stand down immediately. Compliance will be rewarded. Resistance will not." I watched the civilians freeze, watched the fear move through the corridor like a wave, first the ones who understood what processing meant, then the ones who didn't but could read a room. Tamaz looked at me. I keyed my comm. Junction 7 status green, civilians secure, awaiting orders. Commander Yusuf's voice came back immediately. "Calm. Hold your positions. Nobody moves until I say." Then the second transmission came. And this one changed everything. It wasn't from the sovereignty ships. It came from the docking bay on level 4, where a sovereignty diplomatic shuttle had been sitting for 3 days under a routine transit permit. We hadn't thought much of it. Diplomatic shuttles passed through all the time. But someone on that shuttle had been watching, listening, and whoever they were terrified. The transmission was audio only, scrambled, barely coherent, not routed through the station system at all, just punched out on an open emergency frequency that every ship in 100 kilometers could hear. The voice was sovereignty. Species called the Veil, tall, bioluminescent, with these enormous eyes that shifted color based on emotion. I'd spoken to a few over the months. Gentle people, most of them. Scholars, mostly. Badly positioned inside an empire that valued neither quality. The voice was shaking. Please, I am speaking to the humans on this station. I know what has been ordered. I know what my commanders intend. I am asking you, not for myself. There are civilians aboard my shuttle, 43 passengers. They are not soldiers. They were traveling home. Please, whatever happens, please do not harm them. I am begging you. Silence on the comm channel. Then someone in Junction 7, I still don't know who, exhaled like they'd been punched in the chest. I stood very still for a moment. Because here was the thing about that transmission that the sovereignty had never anticipated, never modeled, never even considered putting in their threat assessment archives. They thought we were going to hurt those civilians. They thought that's what we did. They had spent so long being the ones who processed populations and rewarded compliance that they had genuinely, completely, in full sincerity, assumed we operated the same way. And that assumption right there was what lit the fuse. Not the 3 cruisers outside, not the occupation order, not the demand for surrender. The fact that they thought we needed to be begged. I heard Commander Yusuf's voice, still calm, but there was something underneath it now, something that everyone on that station who had ever worn a uniform recognized immediately. Patch me through to those cruisers, all frequencies. I want every ship in this sector to hear what I'm about to say. There's a specific kind of quiet that falls over a room when everyone in it is feeling the same thing at the same time. Not silence, the station was still humming, the ventilation still running. Somewhere down in Cargo Bay 2, a pressure seal was leaking and making that low metallic groan it always made. The sounds were all still there. But the people, every soldier, every civilian, every trader pressed up against the corridor wall trying to figure out which way to run, they all went still. Because Yusuf was speaking. Commander Adisa Yusuf had been in the service for 27 years. He was the kind of officer who didn't perform composure, he just had it, the way some people have a good sense of direction. Innate, unshakable. I'd seen him talk down a fuel riot with 3 words. I'd seen him sit across from a Dothraki smuggler carrying illegal bioware and not blink once. But I'd never heard him sound like this. His voice went out on every frequency. Station broadcast, long-range comm, emergency band, the works. Every ship within 100 light minutes would receive it. This is Commander Adisa Yusuf, 3rd Expeditionary, Varath Station. I've just received a transmission from a Veil citizen aboard a sovereignty diplomatic shuttle. She was begging us not to hurt the civilians she was traveling with. He paused, just briefly, the way you pause when you need a second to make sure you say the next part correctly. I want the galactic sovereignty to understand something. I want every vessel in this sector, every listening post, every diplomatic archive to record what I'm saying. We do not harm civilians. We have never harmed civilians. That is not a policy. That is not a rule we follow because someone told us to. It is what we are. And the fact that you needed to be told, the fact that a frightened person on a shuttle thought she had to beg us, that tells me more about the sovereignty than any weapon assessment ever could. Another pause. Stand your ships down, now, or we will stand them down for you. And I promise you from this moment on, every human fleet in range is already listening to this channel. I looked at Tamaz. His mouth was slightly open. Somewhere behind us, a Vithani woman pressed both hands against her face and started crying, not from fear, I think. From something else. Relief, maybe, or the particular overwhelming feeling you get when you realize someone is actually, genuinely on your side. The 3 sovereignty cruisers did not stand down. They powered weapons. I want to be honest about the next 4 minutes because I've told this story before and people always want it to be cleaner than it was. They want it to be a movie. They want it to be choreographed and triumphant, with the right music underneath. It wasn't. It was 4 minutes of controlled terror. The station's defense grid came up, our 6-point defense platforms and 2 railgun emplacements, which against 3 sovereignty cruisers was somewhere between brave and absurd. Yusuf ordered all non-essential personnel to the inner ring. We moved civilians fast, not running, because running becomes panic and panic kills more people than weapons do. Walking fast. Orderly. My hand on the shoulder of a Dothraki elder who couldn't move quickly, guiding him toward the pressure door. Tamaz had a family of 4 on his side, human family, 2 kids under 10, the father carrying one and the mother carrying the other, and both of them looking at Tamaz like he was the only solid thing left in the universe. He walked them to the door, checked them through, came back. "What now?" he said. "Now we hold," I said. The weapons lock alarm sounded at 4:41. And then the Sovereignty made the second mistake of the morning. They fired a warning shot. Not at the station, at the space beside it. A precision strike on an empty cargo drone that had been drifting in the holding pattern for 2 days. Clean hit. Deliberate miss. The message was, this is what we can do. This is your last chance to comply. It was, from a tactical standpoint, probably the right move. From every other standpoint, it was catastrophic. Because one of the things the Sovereignty didn't have in their files, one of the things nobody had ever bothered to put in a report, was that Verath Station had been sending automated distress pings since the moment those 3 cruisers dropped out of FTL. Quiet pings. Background frequency. The kind a lot of stations run as standard procedure, mostly ignored, mostly noise. But 6 hours earlier, the Carthage and the New Mombasa had been running patrol sweep through the outer belt. They'd been listening. And the moment that warning shot fired, they translated. I felt the vibration before I heard anything. A deep, resonant hum through the station's hull, not from inside, from outside. The kind of vibration that means something very large just dropped out of faster-than-light travel very close to you. Tamaz grabbed the wall. "What is?" "Hours," I said. I didn't know for certain, but I knew. The feed on my wrist display flickered, re-established, and there they were. 2 UEHF destroyers, Carthage class, dropping into position between the station and the Sovereignty cruisers like they'd been waiting there all along. Full combat configuration. Shields hot. Weapons live. No dramatic announcement, no long speech. Just there. The channel crackled. A new voice, flat, professional. The voice of someone who has done this before and is very tired of having to do it again. "Sovereignty vessels, this is Captain Irene Soldatova, UEHF Carthage. You have fired on a civilian-adjacent zone within a protected waypoint station. You have 1 opportunity to reverse course. 1. Silence from the Sovereignty ships. That particular kind of silence that means people are having a very fast internal conversation about whether they actually want to do this. Then a third shape appeared on the display. Bigger. Much bigger. The Jakarta, a full battle cruiser, UEHF First Fleet. It hadn't been in the patrol sweep. Nobody had known it was in the belt at all. But there it was, sitting at the edge of sensor range like a mountain that had decided to move. The Sovereignty channel opened. A single transmission, unencrypted, meant to be heard. We did not anticipate. Soldatova cut them off. "No, you didn't." The 3 Sovereignty cruisers stood down at 4:59. Weapons powered off in sequence, first the lead ship, then the flanking two, like dominoes falling slowly, reluctantly in the direction of survival. They held position for another 12 minutes, just sat there. I think they were deciding how to report this. Or maybe they were just processing what had happened, the same way the rest of us were. I was sitting on the floor of Junction 7 by then, back against the wall, watching the feed on my display. Tamaz was next to me, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing in particular. "That's it," he said. "That's it," I said. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "They really thought we were going to hurt those passengers." I didn't answer, didn't need to. The sovereignty vessels filed a formal withdrawal at 600. No engagement, no casualties, no formal statement. Just a navigational log entry, and the slow arc of 3 warships turning away from a station they'd come to intimidate and leaving considerably quieter than they'd arrived. Commander Yusuf's post-incident report was 4 sentences long. I've memorized them because I've thought about them a lot in the years since. Sovereignty forces powered weapons in response to verbal challenge. UEHF reinforcements arrived before engagement. Sovereignty vessels withdrew. No civilian casualties. That's it, no commentary, no editorial, just what happened. But what happened was enormous, even if the file was small. I went down to level 4 that afternoon. The diplomatic shuttle was still docked. The Sovereignty had apparently decided it was safer to leave it there than to call attention to it during the withdrawal. I don't know what protocol thinking led to that decision. I'm not sure they were thinking clearly at all by that point. I knocked on the hull, old habit, pointless on a shuttle, but it felt right. A minute passed. Then the access panel opened, manual release, not automated, and a veiled woman stood in the hatchway. Tall. Pale bioluminescence, muted, the way veil go when they're exhausted. Her eyes, when they found mine, shifted from gray to something warm and amber. She didn't say anything for a moment. I didn't either. Then she said, in halting standard, I did not know if anyone would hear. "We heard," I said. "I thought," she stopped, started again. "Where I come from, soldiers do not, I mean the soldiers I have seen. What they do, I thought you would." "I know what you thought," I said. She looked at me for a long time. I let her. People need to look sometimes when they're checking whether something is real. Finally she said, "Why?" And I thought about it, because it wasn't a simple question, even if it sounded like one. She was asking something deeper, not just why didn't you hurt them, but why does it matter to you? What's the actual mechanism? What is inside human beings that makes this true? 1,000 years of sovereignty empire, and nobody had ever given her a satisfying answer to that question. I thought about my grandmother, about the way she used to say that the only thing that separates people from animals isn't intelligence, it's the ability to choose not to. About a refugee camp she'd worked at, decades ago, in a part of the world that was burning then, and the one rule she said kept everyone sane: you protect whoever is in front of you. I didn't say all that, I just said, "Because you asked." She didn't understand immediately, I could see it, so I kept going. "You asked. You were scared and you didn't know if it would work and you asked anyway. That matters to us. Someone reaching out, trusting that there's something decent on the other end. We can't let that be wrong. We can't let the universe be a place where that kind of risk gets punished." She was quiet. Her eyes had gone a deep, steady gold. The 43 passengers on that shuttle disembarked 3 hours later. Mixed group, Vale mostly, with a few Orni and one very confused Tharak merchant who still didn't seem entirely sure what had happened. We walked them through the station to the transit lounge, got them food, got them information on connecting routes. Tamaz spent 20 minutes helping a Vale teenager figure out how the station's navigation terminal worked. The kid had never used a UEHF interface before. Tamaz drew him a little diagram on a napkin. By the end they were laughing about something. I don't know what, the translation wasn't great, but it was real laughter. the kind that doesn't need context. I watched that and thought, this is the thing they don't put in the threat assessments. This exact thing. 3 weeks later, Commander Yusuf received a transmission from a sovereignty diplomatic address, not official channels, personal routing. It was from a senior Vale academic at one of their research stations. Apparently word had gotten around, the way things do when 43 witnesses go home and talk. The transmission was short. It said, "We have studied your species for 40 years. We believed we understood you. We were wrong, not about your capabilities, about your reasons. We did not understand your reasons. We are beginning to." Yusuf read it to us at morning briefing. Didn't comment on it, just read it and moved on to logistics. But I saw the look on his face before he moved on. Small, quiet, the look of a man who has been doing the same work for 27 years and occasionally, just occasionally, gets a sign that it meant something. The sovereignty didn't push into the Cauldrus belt again. Not that year, not the year after. The diplomatic situation is still unresolved, technically. There are still competing claims, still negotiations, still standoffs at the edges of contested space. But something shifted after Verath. Something in how they approached those conversations. Something in the questions their diplomats started asking. Not what will you do if we press forward? But why? Why does it matter to you? Why do you stay? Why do you protect people who aren't even your own species, who you met 6 months ago, who share nothing with you except the fact that they're afraid and you're not leaving? It's a good question. I've been thinking about the answer for years. I think it goes something like this. We are not the strongest species in this galaxy. We are not the oldest. We don't have the longest memory or the most advanced technology or the most sophisticated philosophy. What we have is simpler and stranger than any of those things. We remember what it felt like to need someone. And we decided, somewhere along the way, that we were going to be the kind of thing the universe needed more of. A Vale woman on a shuttle was scared enough to transmit a plea into the dark, not knowing if anything was listening. Something was listening. That's the whole story, that's all of it. Don't ever stop asking.